Hey, I'm Espen Kraft, thanks for watching. And this was, of course, the mighty Memorymoog, made between 1982 and 1985, by many hailed as one of the greatest polysynths ever made. Now, the Memorymoogs are known for being temperamental, fragile, they go out of tune very fast, and this unit here is no different, but I love it. It's majestically powerful. It can sound delicate, it can make all sorts of sounds really, and today we're going to check out some of it. So let's have a look at the voice architecture of the Memorymoog, and that's classic in every sense of the word. You have 3 VCOs, you have a VCF, you have a VCA, you have 2 ADSR envelope generators, and you have a noise generator. And from the oscillator section and to the right, it's pretty much the same layout as on a MIDI Moog. To the left of the oscillator section, you have the LFO generators and voice modulation. And to the far left, you have the system control and the performance section. You also have a pitch wheel, modulation wheel, and an octave shift button setup. And the Memorymoog is a 6-voice synthesizer. You have 6 voice cards, each holding 3 oscillators each. And pay attention to oscillator 3, that differs from the other 2 oscillators in that it can act as a source of modulation in the voice modulation section. And as such, it can be used as a LFO. All the 3 oscillators features 3 wave shapes each, pulse width, sawtooth, and triangle, and the pulse width can be modulated on each of the oscillators, and these can then be fed into the mixer for blending. To be able to stack all the wave shapes on top of each other, the waveforms, is really cool, and not many synths had that in 1982. The oscillators can also be detuned, of course, and you can sync oscillator 2 to oscillator 1. Lock its frequency to oscillator 1. Pay attention to the noise generator. This produces pink noise and it cannot be used as a modulation source as on the MIDI Moog. And the filter, well, of course, this is the famous Moog 24 dB octave low-pass filter with a cutoff, emphasis, and contour knobs. The emphasis is the same as resonance, and the contour knob just decides how much effect the filter ADSR will have on the final sound. The return to 0 button is interesting. Striking a key several times with that button switched off will cause the attack time to start from the level it had before the new trigger was received. If you switch it on, striking a note repeatedly will start the attack time from 0 each time. I also like you can program in separate volume for each of the patches. And in the Memorymoog, you have 3 sources of modulation. You have the LFO on top there with its different waveforms that can be sent to different destinations. And the speed, of course. And this section also doubles up on the sequencer. I'll get back to that later. And below the LFO section, you have the voice modulation section, where you can use the oscillator 3 or the filter contour generator as sources of modulation, and you also have destinations for those. You can create a lot of variation using the voice modulation as it affects all 6 filter contour generators. And at the heart of the Memorymoog, you have the system controller. That's a display with the numeric buttons. And check this out. I've dialed up a preset. I adjust one of the values, and you can see the display updates in real time the value of that knob, while the value of the preset is shown to the left there. So I can see if I'm going below or above the value of the presets. And I can hear it, of course, as well. And this goes for all the knobs and buttons on the Memorymoog. Very cool. And even more so, highly usable, of course. I also love the fluorescent display on the Memorymoog in red. Very nice. And this system controller is used throughout the Memorymoog for setting up things like how many voices you're going to be using in mono mode, for instance. And if you watched my videos before, you know that PCBWay makes custom-made circuit boards among other things. And maybe the thing you've designed or invented are more complicated than you first thought and you need some help with the prototyping of your custom-made circuit boards. Maybe you're in need of a single-sided, double-sided or multi-layered custom-made circuit boards. PCBWay have a team of experts ready to help you out. Components, manufacturing, assembly, testing and shipment. Check them out. I'll leave a link for you in the video description. I must admit that from the start, when I got interested in synthesizers, I've always been drawn to onboard sequencers and arpeggiators, and luckily, the Memorymoog has both. So let's set up a little sequence here. I press the sequencer button. That's the sequence I want to program. So I press CC and enter on the system controller, and I'm in sequencer mode. So now it's a matter of setting the tempo, where I'm going to store one of my 6 sequences using the buttons, LFO buttons, which are also memory location buttons. And so I set up the tempo. 90 is fine. How many beats? 4 beats. And how many voices I want to use on this sequence. By using less than 6, I have some to spare, so I can play over the sequence later. And it wants me to press start, and I'll get a count in. You can also use step time recording, which I'm not going to show here. Let's hear that back. And since I didn't use all the voices, I can now play over it. I also changed the footing on the oscillator, so it's now playing an octave below. That was some bad playing right there, but it was cool anyway. But let's add to this. Every sequence memory location can store 1 polyphonic sequence and 1 monophonic sequence. So there was me recording a new sequence, polyphonic sequence. So that's in the can, but the memory location can also store 1 monophonic sequence going out the CV and gate of the Memorymoog. So this sound is not coming from the Memorymoog. The Memorymoog is only triggering another synth through CV and gate, and it's playing the MFB Dominion 1 analog synth through its CV and gate input. So I'm using 2 cables, each coming out of the Memorymoog. One controlling the voltage for the pitch and one controlling the voltage for gate on and off. That's the keys being pressed on and off. On the Memorymoog, I have to trim the low and high ranges, the voltages, to keep the synths in tune. So going back to the Memorymoog and the sequencer mode, I can now add that monophonic sequence to that memory location of the polyphonic sequence I just did. And I can have 6 of those memory locations, each holding 1 polyphonic sequence and 1 monophonic sequence, going out the CV and gates. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what I love, wrestling with this old gear, trying to get something going out of it that brings me that warm feeling of nostalgia. This is what I live for. So that's in the can, hopefully. Let's play it back and see how it sounds. And just one more thing, can we sync this up to anything? I want to control the Memorymoog's sequence from external clock, and I'm using the Isla S2400. Can we make this happen? Well, let's check it out. The Memorymoog PLUS has a clock input on the back there. It also has MIDI. I'm not using MIDI in any way during this video. So if that incoming clock from the S2400 can trigger the sequencer to start in the right tempo, it will be the icing on the cake. And it does. Some more bad playing, but you get the idea. It works. Perfect. The Arpeggiator, however, is hard to sync up, but it's cool in itself. Let's check it out. You have all the usual modes, up, down, etc. But the best part of the Memorymoog is its auto-triggering Arpeggiator, which I'm going to demonstrate here. Pure 80s magic. So let's check out some more sounds from the Memorymoog. Another little cool feature is to control the release with a foot pedal. So I've hooked up a foot pedal now, and I can press that with my foot to turn the release time on and off. Well, I hope you liked some of the clips I put together of this Memorymoog. I think it's one of the really great synths from the 80s. It can do so much. I've only touched upon a fraction of what it can do in this video. A big thanks to Rune Flobakk for letting me have his precious Memorymoog for this video demonstration. You can check out Rune Flobakk's music in the video description. As always, I'm Espen Kraft and I am the 80s. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.